Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chair Yellen. Thank you for being here today. Since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, we have seen the Great Depression, stagflation of the 70s, the Great Recession, and currently one of the slowest economic recoveries in quite some time. When the Federal Reserve makes artificial decisions setting interest rates or fail to properly communicate on its monetary policy, it creates market volatility, in my opinion, which weakens the effectiveness of the markets, making it harder for economic opportunities for all Americans. As you know, there's been considerable pushback to the Fed's current approach to stress testing financial institutions from those who believe that the process has become increasingly arbitrary and unpredictable. The committee has heard concerns from regional banks that are subject to the stress test that the exercise is not tailored to their size and complexity, which results in significant costs that outweigh any potential benefit from the safety and soundness perspective. To increase the transparency of the stress test process and ensure that Congress can hold the Fed accountable for its role in administering the tests, I'd like to ask you, would you support legislation to require the Federal Reserve to issue regulations subject to public notice and comment, spelling out in detail the scenarios it would rely upon in conducting those stress tests?
I wouldn't support such legislation. I think it's very important that the scenarios be current and reflect risks that we assess to be important and relevant at a particular time that we're conducting those stress tests, and the delay that would be caused by putting out for comment particular scenarios would result in the test being stale. We put out a great deal of information about the stress tests. Our approach has been put out for public comment. We have model symposia. We put out a great deal of information, and I don't think that that would result in a stronger
How often
process.
do those environments change in an annual basis?
We have new scenarios every year that we give to the firms, and it's important that they...
So annually?
We put out a different set of scenarios annually.
So why couldn't that legislation be updated annually?
Well, because it would mean that the delay in having public comment and revising things based on public comment would mean that we would have to start very much earlier and wouldn't have the advantage of developments
But it's possible to do that.
Place.
Don't you think we could complete that in a 12-month period?
I don't think that it would add anything to the process, and I think that it would make the scenarios stale.
I think it's important for accountability, and I think it's also important for transparency. I think if we had this kind of requirement on an annual basis, we would probably have both. But I want to move on to a different issue. Dodd-Frank established the CFPB as a bureau within the Federal Reserve System. Can you tell me which of Richard Cordray's decisions must be submitted to you for your approval?
So we don't approve decisions. The CFPB has to consult with us in the course of drawing up proposals, and I believe that they have done so when we have tried to provide feedback and useful input.
How often does Richard Cordray consult with you personally?
I have not consulted with him personally.
So who are they consulting with then?
With our staff.
Do you review and approve the budget, the Bureau's budget?
No, we don't approve their budget.
Can you by law?
I believe the answer is no.
I'm told that the CFPB gets its funding simply by sending a letter each quarter requesting, in most cases, in excess of $100 million. Do you know if that's accurate?
I don't know the details of their budget, but we follow the law in.
But you personally don't review the requests?
I don't think so. No. No, we do not.
Wouldn't you want to, as the head of the Federal Reserve, since they're created under your purview?
Well, Congress set up a system in which we fund them but don't decide what their budget should be.
Do you have any idea what their last budget request was?
I don't recall.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes